The Morning Dump from Hurrdat Sports with Andrew Rogers and Damon Benning.
It's just your casual Thursday morning, rainy, wet here in Nebraska, but we'll be raining the parade, on somebody's parade at least today, right?
I love a parade. Sure, I guess that's what they say.
Did you see Kyrie got his deal dropped by Nike?
Yeah, which is funny because not he, haha, but I have a pair of shoes that are out for delivery. They should be around
Are they Kyrie's?
They are.
I always wanted a pair of Kyrie's. Did you get them on discount?
No, they're actually from my kiddos' hoop season. And one new package update. Order history arrives today. Would you like to see what they are?
I do.
This is terrible radio.
Wow. Those are pretty.
Well, I guess.
I
told him, I said, if you wear stuff like this, you better be good because I'd make fun of you.
Oh, those are for CB?
Oh, that's what he's hooping in.
Nice.
Nice. Kid's different, whatever.
Nice.
Whatever.
You're like, hey, we could just drop your current pair of shoes and paint if you'd like.
Yeah, right? I mean, Zoe could be all in on that
Right.
design. But, I mean, the Kyries they're popular. He's had tremendous amounts of success with that shoe line, and it's a good shoe. They're light, they're durable. You don't feel like super heavy.
It got me thinking about when Tiger got his stuff dropped after all of the things started surfacing with him. But Tiger was able to respond at some point.
Yeah.
Is that because that's an individual sport?
No, you know what I think it is? I think it was Tiger's ability to become human. Right? So I always think at the end of the day, as a culture, as a society, we're extremely forgiving. We're an extremely forgiving people. And I think with Eldrick, like we're boys, right? I think just his level of being humbled and the humility that he had to show, because people like that have never been on bottom before. And sometimes, like, kind of when you're forced to look up and you're on your back and you're like, wow, right, I have to make some serious admissions here. And it's like the poem that, Dr. Lucas, our superintendent at Westside, read to our team, The Man in the Mirror, The Man in the Glass, which is a very...
Not Michael Jackson.
That would be Man in the Mirror, which is, by the way...
Great song.
Amazing song. Like Fave 5, Michael Jackson's Dad, I'll Be There, the Free Willy one.
I'm searching for the man.
Yeah, because I like that kind of stuff. And you know what? Like,
I was a huge MJ fan.
And it's weird. Like, I didn't start to actually get my act together until I went through my divorce. And it's like, at the lowest of the lows was when I realized I got to be better, right? And so it sparked my competitiveness again. I wanted to take some self-inventory and see, what can I actually control?
Well, and Tiger did a lot of self-reflection when he got arrested.
That's the thing, right? So it's
Kyrie's not in a position to where he's getting arrested.
But he hasn't Kyrie hasn't hit bottom yet.
Right, he's getting there.
Which is still why, but it hasn't really, because he's gotten another opportunity. And as long as you keep getting the next opportunity, you can kind of be slow to go. And Tiger pretty much lost everything at once. He was no longer very competitive at golf. His family was obviously in jeopardy. His image was in jeopardy. He had lost his dad. Like that.
Yeah, it went from 0 to 100 in the matter of a snap.
It's daunting. So what else do you have other than you? And so I think when Kyrie's super reluctant to just simply say, hey, you know what? I understand the optics. No need to explain my frame of reference. I understood how it could have been harmful or hurtful to some. I apologize for that. He just has yet to had to go there, so he can skirt the issue.
A little bit of that is stubbornness too, I would say.
Yeah, it's probably part of his persona, but I don't know him like that. I just know.
I would just say overall stubbornness, just individually, because nobody ever wants to be wrong, especially when they're taking in a lot of attention, negative attention. When I say that, but you look back. Think about how easy it would be for Kyrie to respond and bounce back. Like, why is it going to take him from hitting rock bottom, like a lot of other athletes or just people in society, to then become a good person, right? Well, it's because you're stubborn. You're stubborn in your ways. You're trying to control something that you could easily just take on and say, yeah, I'm wrong. Like, yeah, I didn't do the right thing. I apologize for that. I'll be better. I'm going to donate money to this charity to prove that I'm doing the right thing and being better. And then you move forward, right?
Isn't
it's
it
all
amazing?
about moving forward.
Isn't it amazing how people rather give you their talent than their time? It's like they rather give you their talents or their treasure rather than their time. Because if I give you my time and I peel back the curtain, I don't know if I like that guy or gal. So let's just do this and keep it moving, right? But going back to that deal, I think as a forgiving kind of culture, and we typically cheer for a good story. And none of us are above reproach, right? I mean, I think at the end of the day...
Well, we live in such a negative world to begin with because that's all you really see, the hard-hitting news. We like fluff. People like fluff. They like to feel good. They want to have that contagiousness to a story and be like, I feel that too. And in this case, you don't. Yeah. You don't. And really, all you do is see the wrong.
It'll be interesting to see whether
you have a conscience or not,
how he comes back and in what form he does with the Nets, because they decided to obviously.
Well, and you look at other teams and other owners.
They played it safe with Jacques Vaughn, and from a continuity standpoint. Ben Simmons is still a work in progress. KD from a leadership standpoint has not been what you'd think alpha elite level talents have been, and so I'll be curious to see if he can get in where he fits in.
And you just look at other owners, is what I'm going to say here quickly. They don't want him on their team either.
Yeah,
there's a lot of people out there that don't agree with the antics and the ways that he went about doing things, and if he does get dropped by the Nets, it'll be hard for him to find another home. Yeah. Now, let's keep it local here. We'll do some quick hitters. Let's start with college basketball. Today, Thursday, big game locally taking place in Lincoln. Omaha versus Nebraska. I think this game will be a lot more competitive than people think. Right now, the line, I think, is set at 16.5. Omaha got within 7 against KU in the second half, and things didn't really break away until the final 8 minutes of that game. On the contrary, Nebraska found ways to stay comfortable against Maine in the first half, but definitely had Husker fans holding their breath for about 10 minutes in the second half. It took an 11-0 run under the 10-minute window for Nebraska to pull away in that game.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think the key for Nebraska is, if you're going to look at it from the Husker standpoint, is to take care of the basketball and manage the shot clock. You got off to a good start rebounding the basketball. I think you were plus 17 against Maine. You had 44 total team rebounds, whatever, roughly about what that number was. So you have to continue to do work on the defensive end. And I think the other thing is you got to take care of the basketball. You can't afford transition turnovers where teams can get out and run and get easy baskets. Live ball turnovers are the single most important statistic, I think, in college basketball, because it's the one statistic that doesn't give you a shot at producing points if you're turning the ball over. Poor free throw shooting, you shoot enough of them, you may find yourself coming out on the winning end. You don't shoot it well from the field, you shoot enough of them or make enough threes in some other capacity or second chance points, you can find a way around that. You don't take care of the basketball, it is awful.
Yeah, you turn the ball over, you get points off turnovers, and then all of a sudden it's a 12-0 run for the opposing team. And basketball is a game of runs. Omaha is 7-0 ATS in their last 7 games versus a team with a winning percentage above 600. Now, it's so early in the season here to really talk about winning percentage. But those are the stats. The over is 4-0 in Omaha's last 4 road games. The over is 4-0 in Omaha's last 4 games as a road underdog. The over is 3-0-1 in Nebraska's last 4 games as a home favorite. The over is 7-1 in Nebraska's last 8 home games against a team with a losing record. Omaha is 7-0 ATS in their last 7 games as an underdog of 13 points or greater. All those stats trending in both teams' directions, which sets me up to say, don't bet on this basketball game.
Yeah, J.J. White, a lot of pressure will be on him to take care of the basketball. at the point guard spot for Omaha. Talented guy. Didn't shoot it well, but I think he is kind of the guy that's going to run that offense. And he had uncharacteristic. Well, we'll see how characteristic it is or isn't. But he had the 4 turnovers, which I think you got to control that a little bit. Frankie Fiddler
in first game.
Frankie Fiddler had 3 himself, and those are 2 of your better players. So you have to take better care of the basketball there.
And against a team like Kansas, you're forcing a lot more than you probably should.
Yeah, and now let's see if Nebraska can pressure Omaha to put them in situations where they're uncomfortable handling the basketball. But there's one thing I know for sure. Knowing Coach Crutch, Coach Crandall, that staff, and some of the mental makeup on that Omaha team, they will not be fazed by going into PBA. You just left the fog, and you have a couple of coaches on that staff that embrace the role of competing. So I'm with you. This is probably a let's watch it kind of game. Just enjoy it. Vegas is going to Vegas on you. So just be a spectator in this one.
Looking over at Creighton against North Dakota now. Looking forward to seeing a better shooting performance from this crew, but I'm not worried about this matchup at all. UND is pre-ranked last in the Summit League, and the Blue Jays should have no problem sending it home here.
Yeah, North Dakota's not going to be able to score enough. I could see them kind of settling in right around the high 40s, the 50-point mark. And, Creighton's going to get high 70s, probably touch 80 if they're shooting it well. So that has all the makings of an 85-54 kind of game. For the Jays out there. And I think there's a lot of things that I think they want to continue to work on. They do want to shoot it better. I think you want the assist-to-turnover ratio. It's not just the hard number, but it is in makeable or potential assists. Are guys finishing plays that they should make, and are you making the right basketball play? Because when you have so many weapons like Creighton does, I think sharing the basketball and going from a good to a great shot is kind of what's going to make this team go. Because ultimately, I actually think this will be a good defensive team. I said that a couple weeks ago in talking about kind of the forecast for this team. I think they'll be a much better defensive team maybe than given credit for. We knew what Kalkbrenner did in the conference a year ago, but they were better on the ball too. And I think their defensive efficiency numbers were fantastic a year ago, especially in conference, as the best team in the Big East. And it's like when you think Creighton, that's not what you think. And I do think a lot of that is portable, especially if you can find ways to utilize and play to guys like Sharif, Mitchell's strengths. I think Alexander's got the potential to be a good on-ball defender. You've got 2 decent rim protectors, one really good one in Kalkbrenner, the other in Kaluma, who's very capable. And how will they play ball screens? Right? That's kind of the thing and how you want to attack Creighton in terms of getting Kalkbrenner away from the basket.
Couldn't agree more. I think you focus on the little things in a matchup like this and making sure you can start checking all the boxes, right? You establish an early lead. That sets you up to, not play down to your opponent in a matchup like this. You talk about protecting the basketball here. I think that's of great importance because you want to do the little things right every time you step on the floor, no matter who you're playing. So whether you're playing the best team in basketball or one of the lower-ended teams in basketball, you have to make sure that you're connecting on all cylinders and making sure you're taking the game of basketball like a technicality, essentially, and saying, like, okay, I know I have to be in this spot when we're running this defensive 2-3 or 1-3-1 or whatever it is, and you're filling those holes and not getting caught being lazy in a matchup like this too. I think it'll tell a lot about this team and just seeing their ability against a lesser opponent, and it will give the coaching staff a good idea of all of these guys are playing with heart, no matter what, all the time, or, I see this person fading a little bit when we're up big in games, or the game's close and it's leading to turnovers. So it's a game that you want to kind of take a look at and just be intricate, right? And just focus on the little things and making sure you get those things right. As for the women at Creighton, they take on USD. The season started with the top team in the Summit. Now the Lady Jays get the second best team in that conference with South Dakota. Keep an eye on sophomore Grace Larkins in this one. She's second team all-conference in the Summit League, but also remember that this USD team's under a new first-year head coach, Dawn Pletzewhite, at West Virginia now.
Yeah. So I think the interesting thing about this one is we kind of talked about this a couple of days ago. Flan's going to play a good non-con. He's going to play a competitive non-con, and it just so happens that a lot of the teams regionally that make good sense for both as a non-con opponent are of high quality. So Creighton will continue to try to evolve, and they return a ton in terms of experience and coming off a magical season from a year ago, and they're just getting started. And how cool is this potential matchup of what's going to be 2 top 25 teams next week when Nebraska and Creighton meet?
And I'm a big fan of quality over quantity when it comes to building your non-conference schedule. Really gets you prepared for the season to come. Looking away from basketball now, we head into Saturday and touch on Nebraska's game against Michigan, a game in Ann Arbor, a travel day for DB after he comes off a hopeful win on Friday night as well. But DB, what are you looking at exactly for this Nebraska team that's kind of in a hole right now? You have Miles Farmer that's suspended. You have Casey Thompson that's still shaken up. Can things really get any worse for Nebraska at this point?
Oh, I mean, yeah, sure. I mean, like, you still have Anthony Grant. You still have Trey Palmer. Luke Reimer is playing at a high level. Quentin Newsome is starting to really round into form. Colton Feast is continuing to play at a high level. Ty Robinson arguably coming off his best back-to-back performances as a D lineman for Nebraska. So, sure, I mean, it could. You could get your doors blown off in a very, very non-competitive way. I don't actually foresee that happening, even though, again, we've talked about it. Michigan, the most complete team in the Big Ten, in my opinion. And will Michigan be chasing style points? It doesn't seem like the Harbaugh way, because they are in the college football playoff top 10 or top 5, top 4.
But they're also the team that gets left out more often than Ohio State.
Correct. So will Harbaugh kind of get out of it? He doesn't seem like the type to get out of pocket and be something that they're not. But if they're looking for style points, how will that happen? And if you're Nebraska, we said it for a couple weeks now, and maybe if we say it enough, we can speak it into existence. 4's got to be enough in terms of yards per carry, third and shorts, trying to possess the football. This is an explosive front that they're going against for Michigan, and I think having a method to the madness, or at least an identity, will serve Nebraska well.
Michigan is one of 2 FBS teams in the country with top 10 rankings in both scoring offense and scoring defense. They have J.J. McCarthy, who's won his 8th straight start to begin his career. He's now the first quarterback to do that since 2016. Blake Corum, of course, is somebody highly talked about in Heisman conversations. He recorded his 6th consecutive 100-yard rushing game. That's the 3rd longest streak by a Wolverine as well. There's some big keys that I think about when it comes to this football game. One, when you look at offensively, it's been talked about all week in practice, but eating the clock. Time is your best friend in a matchup like this. Mickey addressed the need to emphasize running the football against Michigan. You have to commit to that process. Don't abandon it right away if it's not working. Now, adjust for sure, but you need a unique game plan to compete against the 3rd best team in the country, the most complete team as we talk about in the Big Ten. Anthony Grant can do that. He ranks 22nd nationally in rushing yards per game. He can really get his legs going. There just has to be a hole for him to get through. Make some room on the offensive line. You really have to be physical in a matchup up front. Defensively, they need breathers. Mm-hmm. When you take on a team that is big on big plays, the Huskers are defending their 3rd straight run-first offense. They're going to be on the field a lot, too. So that's why the offense for Nebraska needs to try to keep their defense off the field. Plus, this unit held only one team, that was Indiana, under 100 rushing yards. That's going to be tough going into this matchup against Corum.
Yeah, especially, Michigan coming off a game against Rutgers where they got off to the very ominous slow start, and we know what happened with that explosive 3rd quarter in which they scored 28 points. But Michigan possessed the ball 37 minutes. And Nebraska's coming off Illinois, 35 minutes plus, and last week against Minnesota where they got to their league average at 35-plus minutes holding the football. So Nebraska just can't afford to go through those long stretches, a quarter and a half in consecutive games without being able to generate a first down. Michigan 7-17 a week ago Nebraska had just the 3 third down conversions a week ago. Have to get much better than that if you're going to even remotely give yourself a chance to play competitive football.
Other college football games look like this. DB, let's play a little respect or disrespect here. TCU is 7-point underdogs to Texas. Respect or disrespect?
I think that number's right. I really do. I look at TCU. I just have too many concerns about their defensive numbers. They give up entirely too many points. The better players overall in their totality belong to Texas. The mental edge and perhaps coaching belong to TCU. I think talent reigns supreme. I'd take Texas and lay the 7. That's actually a good play. I think if you're a TCU fan, it comes across as disrespect. I actually think the number's right.
You talk about talent, and talent for sure lies with Texas, but I got to say, you look at Texas, and there's people out there that say this team should be undefeated. Well, guess what? In this matchup, there's only one team that's undefeated, and that's TCU, and they find ways to win football games. I am on the ladder. I think it's disrespectful. I would actually lay +7. Hopefully it gets above that key number and goes to 7.5 if people start hammering Texas in this matchup. I like TCU +7.5. Kansas as 3.5-point dogs to Texas Tech. Disrespect or respect?
That's disrespect. That is disrespect. But people just they don't want to believe in Kansas. Now, Texas Tech was tough a week ago for about 2.5 quarters against TCU. They succumbed late. Score kind of got away from them. I felt like the game was played closer than that, especially in the first half if you're a Red Raider fan. But Kansas, a lot like TCU, your questions come defensively. Can you get enough consecutive stops and meaningful stops where you're not yielding points? But in this one, I think Kansas is the better coach team. It's on the road, which is very tricky. Lubbock, been there twice in my playing career,
town.
And didn't play particularly well. It's a lot of Brown, a lot of Red Raider fans. It is a good college town. Careful with this one if you're a Jayhawks fan.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more when you said defensively, when you talk about TCU and Kansas, that's where the question marks lie. Yeah. I agree with you, though. 3.5-point dogs, Kansas. I mean, you know Kansas has kind of been my team this year. Yeah. And Texas Tech, they've been put too close in some of these matchups. Vegas is really siding with Texas Tech this year. UNC is 3.5-point dogs to Wake Forest. Respect or disrespect?
I think that is respect. Unless you're a May fan, and I know you are. I love North Carolina's offense. I think they can score. Now, Wake Forest has got to find a way to stop the ground game. I'm not sure if that's going to play to Carolina's strengths because it's not really what they want to do. But I just like Wake at home, and I'm a big fan of keeping an eye on unranked versus ranked, and the unranked being favored. Wake as a favorite over a top 20 program, and Carolina's got good wins. So don't kid yourself.
Their strength of schedule, though, is what actually hurts Drake May when it comes to Heisman consideration.
It's a little meh, right? I'll take Wake Forest in that one.
I would take UNC. As DB said, I'm a big Drake May fan, and I think there is a scenario out there where you could see Drake May as the Heisman this year. There is a way that could happen. It's not the easiest path to take, and the road may have some bumps, maybe some potholes, but there is a chance. Drake May, he's putting up some fantastic numbers.
No, the cool thing is you're going to have to go the extra mile in terms of playing long into the postseason, and i.e. like an ACC championship. But the cool thing about that is when you take the extra mile, not a lot of traffic. So May could be standing alone on that one by taking the extra mile.
He could. LSU has 3-point favorites over Arkansas.
Doesn't seem right. A very hot LSU team. They're playing well. A top 10 LSU team with a lot to play for when you start thinking about a 2-loss LSU team. And the inconsistency of Arkansas. I think we thought Pittman as a coach was going to take a couple of steps forward.
I thought KJ was too.
But now he is an enigma wrapped in a riddle. He is he's very perplexing to watch. But having said that, Slight number, I get it. It doesn't look like enough, but it is the SEC. Anything can happen. I don't love it, but I lean LSU.
I actually respect it in terms of Arkansas being +3. I think they actually hit the nail on the head.
That's a dangerous team.
Yeah,
right?
it is.
And they're capable.
And they showed that early on this season. There was just some points where you're like, what are you doing?
Yeah.
What are you doing? Notre Dame is 15.5-point favorites against Navy.
Yeah, that's going to be a tough one. Navy grinds on you, obviously, in the way that they play, but not as dynamic at the quarterback spot as they have been. And D-line is vastly undersized. Notre Dame will lean on Navy quite a bit. And how about this? If you're a Domers fan, two of the teams that you've beaten in the ACC in Carolina and Clemson are above you in terms of ranking. How about that if you're a Domer fan?
Now, Navy does rank top 15 in 6 defensive categories this season, and they run the ball as much as anybody in the country. The Irish are also 0-4 ATS as double-digit favorites in 2022.
It's such a grinder kind of game. 15's a lot to get to in this one with limited possessions. Kind of like Notre Dame. Don't love it.
Illinois has 6.5-point favorites against Purdue. Big Ten matchup here, but Purdue seems a little undervalued here.
Yeah, I just don't know who Purdue is. They can't run the football. They won't run the football.
A little bit like Arkansas. Really just can't find their identity.
Just too consistent on the passing game. But as leaky as the back end of Purdue is, I don't know if Illinois can take advantage of it because that's not how they want to play. But Purdue doesn't generate a lot of pressure in terms of getting sacks on the quarterback. And like I said, that back end can be vulnerable to big plays. Fortunately, if you're a Boiler fan, it's not the way Illinois plays. I still like Illinois in this one coming off a very ugly loss from a week ago.
There's some great matchups this week. Ole Miss as 12-point dogs to Alabama.
It seems like too many, but I think Vegas is playing the trend. The number's big, but Saban hasn't lost 3 in a row since 2007.
100%. So
you're going against trends there with what Saban brings to the table and Alabama. And boy, can Ole Miss get good enough quarterback play in the passing game to keep Alabama off balance? Very good running the football, and surprisingly quietly pretty good playing defense. God, they're begging you to take Ole Miss in this one because the number seems too big.
Yeah, you're thinking like, man, a touchdown and a field goal seems right.
Touchdown!
That's a must-watch for me. I'd stay away.
What about Michael Severe's Tulane Green Wave?
Good one.
1.5-point favorites to UCF.
Yeah, top 25 matchup.
And you know me and the Green Wave, we've had some love back in a good love fest this year when it comes to betting.
You and I talk quite a bit about them over text, but I think the number's probably right here. I look at this game as a toss-up. And who's UCF offensively?
You know what I was just going to say? I really don't know what UCF is.
I don't like.
They kind of snuck their way in, and here they are.
Yeah, they just find a way to keep winning. It doesn't seem like enough points with Tulane at home. So gun to head, I'd probably take UCF.
Wow.
Yeah.
I don't know if I can go against the Green Wave.
So you know what I don't like? I don't like a minus 120, 125 money line
yeah.
when it only costs you $1.10 or $1.05 to take the 1.5.
To take the point, yeah.
It has one either way written all over it. Otherwise, the money line wouldn't be so expensive.
I don't like it.
100%. How about Iowa State as 1-point favorites to Oklahoma State? This is a game for me.
It's quarterback play for Okie State.
Well,
that's what it is.
It's also a little bit of the same with Iowa State.
Yeah, with Decker, yeah.
I'm sitting back here, and I look at, there have been some tough days for Hunter Deckers as a starting quarterback this year. He had a lot of expectations in the Big 12, but he's thrown 10 interceptions.
Accuracy.
And quarterback accuracy has been tough for him, but it's kind of the same with Oklahoma State. They were a highly ranked team, and then they fell out of the top 25, and now they're trying to find their feet again. You look at both schools, and you're sitting back and you're thinking, these guys are kind of in the same spot.
Yeah, I just think quarterback play will be the difference, and I'll take the slightly better defense as of late. Give me Iowa State on the road. I mean, listen, and I understand the stats. Campbell's not good in one-score games.
You know who else isn't good in one-score games? He's not coaching anymore.
Do tell. Oh,
He's not coaching anymore.
Yeah. Well, it was basically he and Campbell as the two worst while they were both coaching as current head coaches. But that may very well soon be South Florida's problem. Who knows, if you believe the rumor mill.
I can't believe that name's being tossed around.
Give me Iowa State.
Georgia is 16-point favorites against Mississippi. Hammer it.
Always. Georgia's complete. Georgia's greatest enemy will be complacency. I think they're going to continue to step on the gas. It's the most complete team in college football. I
almost think it's disrespectful to only make them 16-point favorites.
Oh, that's it. Again, it's the SEC, and you feel like
Will Rogers can do something.
It's capable, right? It has backdoor cover written all over.
And
it.
Mike Leach, I mean, that dude is just my favorite person to listen to.
Just don't know if he'll stay with the run game long enough. You get busy throwing it around the
Sorry,
yard.
I'm dealing with this.
Yeah.
This cough.
Candy corn.
It's getting better. And did you? After he said it's getting better, he coughed harder than he did the first time.
Hey, listen, coming off a guy that's been under the weather for 3 weeks, man.
You get it.
Those of us in glass houses don't throw stones.
100%. Let's do 3 more. Washington has 13.5 points.
I didn't know if you were going to get to this one.
Oh, yeah, I was getting there.
I like this one.
I do, too. Washington has 13.5-point dogs to Baylor. Disrespect or respect to Washington?
It's Oregon. It's at Outson. Eugene, as I like to say. Probably a little bit of disrespect to Washington, but Oregon is a good football team. And
I say Baylor, I meant Oregon.
No, don't worry. I know what you're saying. It's the other funny colored team with green in there.
Well, I have Baylor as the next one.
So it's like, which, by the way, tight number. We'll get to that in a sec. On the road, too. But anyway, let's cross one bridge at a time. I like Oregon in this one. DeBoer and company have quietly done a really good job. I just don't trust quarterback play like I should in Washington, and there's just something weird happens.
I actually trust the quarterback play. I don't trust Washington's defense.
Yeah, well, I mean, they're going to be tested, too.
They're abysmal.
They're going to be stressed, but it can't get behind the sticks. Because I think Oregon has the personnel to match the scrambling and elusiveness that you're going to see at the quarterback spot for Washington. Kind of how I felt about Georgia matching up with Hendon Hooker, why I was so confident about laying that big number.
Well, Oregon actually ranks bottom 10 in FBS in numerous pass defense categories, while Washington throws it as much as any other team in the country. And Penix Jr., Penix with an X, Penix Jr.
And not Penix?
And not Penix.
As in Michael Jr.? Penix?
Penix? I like to say Penix.
Yeah, I don't want to talk about that.
Me neither.
The Ducks just aren't generating enough pressure to get to Penix. So
big for a reason.
Nice.
No, I'm serious. The number.
Yeah, I'm sure that's what you meant.
It is 13. It's 13 for a reason.
Nice. I actually think the 13 is
what
leaning Oregon's direction.
It's top 25.
If you take 14.5. If that's what it got to, I would take Washington. I would like it to get above the key number there.
Yeah, you guys are funny with that point. Just go the other way then.
Yes and no. Yes to a degree, but whenever I talk about that with you, I leave it at this. If I think
how often does
it
land on the key number? 14.5, 13.5.
Well, it can't land on a half.
6.5 versus 7.5.
Right. That's why.
How often do you get 7 or 14?
Fairly often.
I don't know about that. Not in those spread kind of games.
Okay.
That's something I would like to do some statistical research on.
Yeah, and I could just be talking out of my behind when I say that.
Never that.
But what I look at is this. If I think a team can be competitive enough to potentially win a football game on the lower point totals, not on those higher ones. Like, if they're 2 touchdown favorites, I'm not thinking Washington's winning this football game. But if I'm looking at a game like, well, you know what? Perfect example. Let's talk about this next one. Baylor as 2.5-point favorites to K-State. If that was 3 points and I wanted to make money, then I am going to take Baylor minus 2.5 so that if they win by 3, I'm good.
Yeah,
I get to that key number. But I do that because I guess it makes more sense if you're taking the dog. So if I think K-State could win that game, I'm going to take plus 3.5 just in case that Baylor wins by that field goal. So and by buying that half point, it doesn't lose me much money.
And I'll tell you kind of how I look at it. With a minus 140 money line and a less than a key number ATS, 2.5, that has a Baylor 1 or 2 point win all over it. Curious in games like this on how many times does it land on 3 or more in games like this. It has a 1 to 2 point Baylor win written all over it. Just my opinion. So I mean, that's a high minus 140 for a game like this, money line with a 2.5. That's a lot.
It is, but like that's why I just you kind of make fun of me every now and then when I talk about hey, I'm going to buy points here.
Yeah.
But I buy points just on if I think a team could win, right? In closer games, if I'm like, oh wow, I could easily see Auburn. Or A&M beating Auburn, which is another game we're going to talk about here next. I could easily see that happening. I don't. I think Auburn wins that football game, but this is a hypothetical. If I could see that happening and they are, say, 7-point favorites, well, I'm like, well, I'd rather take A&M at plus 7.5 just in case Auburn does win this game by 7 like Vegas says, and I still win money.
I mean, hey, listen.
It's a different approach.
I understand.
Right?
I understand.
And I know where you're going, too.
I'm Team Drew down, man. I want you to do well.
My man.
The better you do, the better the show is.
The better I do, the happier I am.
Nobody needs
when
a crab
I get here.
Nobody needs a crab apple.
Tell me, though, did you say disrespect or respect to Baylor as 2.5-point favorites?
I think that's respect.
And then going into Auburn as 1.5-point favorites against A&M, what do you think?
Oh, boy, is that messy.
A&M, the biggest overvalued team.
Yeah, but Auburn can't stop the run.
Nope, sure can't.
I mean, they're what, 110 in Division I?
Yeah.
I mean, A-Chain and company, I don't know. Give me A&M, but these are two teams I feel like I have a terrible pulse with. I mean, who is Auburn?
In a game like this, if I see A&M as 1.5-point dogs, I look at it and say, well, I might as well take their money line because if I'm going to risk taking plus 1.5, I might as well risk and try to get plus money here.
I see you working, and I don't mind that philosophy at all. But Auburn in flux, no real head coach, stuff swirling. They can't stop the run. A&M, as I said at the beginning of the season, the biggest frauds in college football. I don't know, man.
They are the biggest frauds.
It's unbelievable.
It is crazy.
At some point, those recruits got to pan out, don't they?
And with what happened in the offseason, you would have thought that A&M was going to be in the college football playoff this year. If not next year. And you don't even see – I don't foresee them being in the college football playoff in 4 years based on how this football team's playing. It's going to be crazy. Now, of course, we'll be monitoring Twitter, seeing if anything new comes out before Nebraska's football game against Michigan this weekend. We'll hit on any new coaching news that we see as well. You can follow DB on Twitter at Damon Benning, myself at Andrew Rogers TV, or the show. And you can catch the show wherever you get your podcasts at Hurrdat Sports on social media. But if you go the podcast route, we're on Apple, we're on Spotify, we're wherever you want to find us. That's where we'll be. Now, something I want to talk about tomorrow that we didn't get to today, but I alluded to it, is the Heisman conversation and some of the different scenarios that could pan out for the top-end guys, and why I think C.J. Stroud shouldn't be the odds-on favorite. And I don't know if you agree with that, but I would love to talk about that more. We'll talk about that tomorrow and anything new that comes across the sports scene. It's the Morning Dump. Wipe, get on with your day. We'll see you tomorrow.